The Honorable Audley Shaw, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, and other representatives of the Ministry, the Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, Minister of State in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Her Excellency Ambassador Marion Van Steen, Head of Delegation of the European Union in Jamaica, Dr. Wayne Henry, Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, and other representatives of the PIOJ, Mr. Damien Campbell, Program Manager of the British Council, and other representatives of the British Council, Mrs. Marlene Street Forrest, Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, representatives of other partner organizations such as the National Housing Trust and the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange, persons working in the social entrepreneurship sector, persons in the room, as well as those joining us on social media on various online platforms. Ladies and gentlemen all, good morning. So my name is Archibald Gordon, and I am your moderator this morning, and welcome to this closeout ceremony of the Investment Climate Reform Facility here at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel in Kingston, Jamaica. Now, this morning, you're going to be hearing from a range of partners working on a key project which supports business, climate, and investment environment reforms. And the specific project this morning focuses on social entrepreneurship. Now, the ICR is a critical project, and if we needed a reminder, COVID-19 has certainly provided it. Because of the pandemic, some of us, for instance, have been working from home, or working hours have changed. In normal times, a lot of you watching online would have been here right in front of me at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel. The effort to reform how we do business, what kind of businesses we invest in, for instance, is a time to break the mode and invest more in social enterprises. Indeed, the very future of business is a real question right now. I'm sure that is among the discussions we'll have today. This is a kind of discussion that makes me really, really excited, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's start with a word of prayer. I'd like to invite Ms. Charmaine Brim from the PIOJ to the lectern to deliver that word of prayer, and she will also deliver our opening remarks. Ms. Brim?
European Union in Jamaica, Mrs. Marlene Street Forrest, Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, Dr. Wayne Henry, Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, Ms. Irene Dankwa, Program Manager, ICR Facility, British Council in Ghana, Mr. Damien Campbell, Program Manager, British Council in Jamaica, distinguished facilitators and panelists, other distinguished guests, representatives from government ministries, departments and agencies, academia, international development partners, social enterprise practitioners, all joining us on the various social media platforms, representatives of the media, good morning. It is my pleasure to be here with you this morning at this, the project closing ceremony of the Investment Climate Reform Facility to Jamaica, and to lay out for you the background which led to Jamaica accessing technical support through this facility. The concept of social enterprises has been around in Jamaica as far back as 1878, when Reverend G.W. Downer, rector of Kingston Parish Church, and a group of clergymen founded the Victoria Mutual Building Society, an institution built on strong values and principles and designed specifically to meet the needs of the deserving thrifty. Their vision was to empower a large segment of the Jamaican population to help one another through a process that involved the pooling of their resources to save and acquire homes. The objective then, as it remains today, was to fund a mutual financial institution that would enable all Jamaicans to achieve the goal of becoming proud homeowners. Following on in the 1960s was the Westmoreland Building Society, which completed its first merger with the Manchester Mutual Building Society to form what we know today as the Jamaica National Building Society, now called the JN Group. Their mission was also to address the issue of non-availability of affordable housing for the Jamaican people. By the 70s and into the 1990s and 2000, we have seen the establishment of other similar entities, such as the Agency for Inner City Renewal, the Mustard Seed Communities, the Multicare Foundation, and others, who embarked on a mission to address several of the social, economic, and environmental issues in Jamaica. It is entities such as these that have charted the pathway for the emergence of this third sector called social enterprise. However, an understanding of social enterprises as a business, that is, a registered entity with a defined social mission to contribute to solving social, economic, environmental, or cultural problems at the community, national, or international levels through ethical business practices, with a significant portion of profits being reinvested in the social mission, did not come about until 2009, when the Jamaica National Foundation and the United States Agency for International Development rolled out the Social Enterprise Boost Initiative. The project was specifically designed to create an enabling business environment for social enterprises in Jamaica and to assist them in transitioning their grant-funded operations into viable, profit-making businesses which can support their social mission. SEBI also brought increased awareness and publicity about the sector to Jamaica. Now, despite the work carried out by these organizations and social enterprise practitioners, and based on several research conducted by the UWI Center of Entrepreneurship and Thinking Practices, it was recognized that a major gap existed, that being the absence of a legislative framework to support the social enterprise sector. Thus, in 2015, the Jamaica National Foundation engaged the Planning Institute of Jamaica to begin the conversation about addressing this gap. This led to the establishment of a policy committee within the PIOJ. Arising from this, the committee lobbied the ministry to include social enterprises in discussions during the limited review of the MSME and entrepreneurship policy. In 2016, a working group was set up to develop the narrative on social enterprises, which would inform the development of a new chapter on social value creation. Subsequently, in 2017, a proposal was prepared and submitted to Cabinet for a new chapter on social value creation to be added to the MSME and entrepreneurship policy. In 2018, Cabinet approved the updated policy with the new chapter on social value creation added, which became white paper in July 2018. Now, whilst the MSME and entrepreneurship policy had now recognized the sector, an overarching legislation was still absent for social enterprises. Additionally, there remained limited understanding about social enterprises amongst public officials, government facilitators, and the private sector, and there was an absence of any definitive tool or method to measure social value impact of the social enterprise sector. There was then the need to address this issue, as it was recognized that having a legislative framework in place and formalization of social enterprises would unleash several spin-off benefits for the sector, including a registrable legal status with attendant benefits and programs designed specifically for the needs of the sector. Additionally, Addressing the issues would lead to social enterprises being included in the special and differential treatment provisions of the public procurement regime currently being implemented by the government, paving the way for social enterprises to trade with public sector, thereby opening social value, market share, and creating an inclusive economy. Building the capacity around social enterprise would therefore enable public officials, government facilitators, and the private sector to pursue social weighting for contracts, demonstrating the strong and sustainable impact on society. Therefore, in June 2020, the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce and the Planning Institute of Jamaica sent a request to the Investment Climate Reform Facility for technical assistance for business environment reform for the social enterprise sector in Jamaica. In December 2020, after the request was assessed, approved, and the technical assistance designed, the intervention began. The ICR facility was officially launched at the Jamaica Stock Exchange 16th Regional Investment and Capital Markets Conference on the 27th of January 2021. Thereby, the British Council, on behalf of the ICR facility, led the implementation of the intervention, which was successfully executed and has brought us here today to share in the presentation of two key deliverables, that being a draft Social Enterprise Legal Status Act and a marketing strategy and resource mobilization plan for Jamaica's social enterprise sector. I therefore use this opportunity to say congratulations, Jamaica, and thank you to the European Union and the partnering organizations which co-funded the ICR facility for business reform for the social enterprise sector project to Jamaica. We are truly grateful and do look forward to other possibilities to access further support as we continue to strengthen the social enterprise ecosystem in Jamaica. Last but not least, I must also express my pleasure to have worked with the teams from Ghana, UK, and Jamaica. Specifically, Ms. Irene Dankwa, the program manager of the ICR facility, British Council based in Ghana, the international consultants, Mrs. Juliet Cornford and Mr. Dan Gregory, the trainers and facilitators of the workshops held, my esteemed colleagues from the British Council in Jamaica, Mr. Damian Campbell, the team from the ministry, Mr. Clifford Spencer, Mr. Oral Shaw, Mrs. Angela Hamilton, and the team from the PIOJ. To our consultants, local consultants, Renee Gale, an attorney at law, and her team who prepared the Legal Status Act, and to Ms. Anna Toby, the local consultant who developed the marketing strategy and resource mobilization plan, we say thank you. I could not have worked with a better team. Thank you.
Ms. Brim, thank you so much. As I listen to you, forgetting it's COVID-19, we have protocols to observe. Ms. Brim, as I listen to you, you really reinforced in your speech the value of partnership because of how much was done in such a short space of time. And in light of that, we want to hear from one of our key partners on this project, and we also want to hear from those of you at home viewing us in your various locations. Please share your comments and your questions using the hashtag SOCENTJA exclamation mark. That's again SOCENTJA exclamation mark. And the question we want to ask is, with legislation in place and a marketing plan, how do you see this supporting your work as a social entrepreneur? Again, the hashtag is SOCENTJA exclamation mark. So again, we want to hear from one of the key partners that she highlighted there, partners out of Ghana, and I would like to invite Ms. Irene Dankwa. She's program manager at the ICR facility in Ghana to make her presentation, and she joins us virtually via Zoom.
And other representatives of the EU delegation in Jamaica, the Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, Mrs. Marlene Street Forrest, and the other representatives of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, Dr. Wayne Henry, and other representatives of the PIOJ, Mr. Damian Campbell, British Council Project Manager in Jamaica, representatives of other public agencies in the meeting, distinguished facilitators and panelists, social enterprise practitioners, public and private stakeholders joining us online, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon from Accra, Ghana, and good morning to you in Kingston. It is a great pleasure to be joining you today at the closure event of the Investment Climate Reform Facility, or simply known as the ICR facility in Jamaica. The ICR facility is co-funded by the European Union, the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States, under the 11th European Development Fund, together with the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, and the British Council. It is implemented by GIZ, the British Council, Expertise France, and SNV. This current intervention, of which we are gathered here today in Jamaica, was implemented by the British Council on behalf of the ICR facility. The ICR facility supports public and private stakeholders in Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific countries to improve their investment climate and business environment reform through public-private dialogue. We therefore contribute to achieving SDG 8 in the Africa, Caribbean countries by promoting inclusive and sustainable economic growth, employment, and decent work for all. The journey of this ICR facility intervention began in June last year when we received a request from the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce and the Planning Institute of Jamaica to provide technical assistance for business environment reform for the social enterprise sector. Technical assistance was sought in 3 areas: to develop a draft legislation for Jamaica Social Enterprise Legal Status Act, which will be submitted to the Chief Parliamentary Council, to develop a marketing plan and resource mobilization plan, and the third, to conduct training works for public officials, government facilitators, private sector, social enterprise intermediaries on the concept of social enterprise. So in December 2020, the intervention started, and it was officially launched as part of the Jamaica Stock Exchange 16th Regional Investment and Capital Market Conference on the 27th of January 2021. A big thank you to the Jamaica Stock Exchange and the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange for giving us the platform to host this launch. From December 2020 to June 2021, we've been using a series of activities that included stakeholder mapping and analysis, reviewing of existing documents related to the social enterprise sector in Jamaica, developing a global comparison paper, having focus group discussions, interviews, stakeholder consultations, public-private dialogue processes, among others. The team of both national and international consultants and the teams at the Ministry, PIOJ, and the British Council have delivered the following outputs. So, 1, a draft social enterprise legal status act has been developed. This will be submitted by the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce to the Chief Parliamentary Council to undergo the process of passing the bill. 2, a social enterprise marketing plan and resource mobilization plan has also been developed. This will be used to promote the new business model, promote the concept of buying social, selling social, raise public awareness and across mainstream society at the grassroots and featuring buyers events. And the third one, we also conducted 4 workshops across the social enterprise network in Jamaica that included public and private sectors, in addition to the local social enterprises, to increase their capacity to contribute to the design, implementation, and evaluation of the legal framework for social enterprises. Allow me to acknowledge the national consultants, Ms. Renee Gale, Miss Anna Toby, Miss Elena Reid, Miss Opal White, and the international consultant, Mr. Dan Gregory, and Miss Juliet Comfort for this work. I would also like to acknowledge the immense support from the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce team, which was led by Mr. Clifford Spencer, Mr. Ora Shaw, and Miss Angela Hamilton, and the PIOJ team led by Miss Charmaine Brim. Thank you to the British Council project team also in Jamaica, which was led by Mr. Damon Campbell and Mr. George Young, and the British Council team abroad, Miss Juliet Comfort in the UK and Miss Christiana Bando in Ghana, who oversaw the implementation of this intervention. And a big thank you to all the public and private stakeholders and the social enterprise practitioners who supported the project when we called on you. With the Draft Social Enterprise Legal Status Act and the Social Enterprise Marketing Plan and Resource Mobilization Plan, we hope that the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce and the Planning Institute of Jamaica can create a more inclusive and sustainable business environment for social enterprises in Jamaica. And as public and private stakeholders have gained increased capacity on the concept of social enterprises through the trainings delivered, they can contribute to the design, implementation, and evaluation of the legal framework and programs for social enterprises in Jamaica. And when the Social Enterprise Legal Status Act is passed, it will improve the business environment and investment climate for social enterprises in Jamaica, as well as they will have a registrable legal status with attendant benefits and programs designed specifically for their needs. I hope we will have a fruitful discussion today to lead to the next steps for the Draft Social Enterprise Legal Status Act and the Social Enterprise Marketing Plan and Resource Mobilization Plan. I thank you, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Danko. We have a saying here in Jamaica, we call it speaking it into being. I think you articulated that well at the end of your speech when you said, when the Social Entrepreneurship Act is passed. We'd like to repeat that notion. You see, every challenge, as I say, always presents an opportunity. It's wonderful to be able to hear from you this morning, and that's possible because in light of COVID-19, we are establishing not just new partnerships, but we're also able to hear from our partners in ways in which we perhaps were not considering before. So I'd like to celebrate again and thank Ms. Dankwa there from Accra in Ghana. And also we'd like to hear from some of the other partners. You online, again, use our hashtag, it's SOC.ENTJA! Matter of housekeeping as well. We have registration and consent forms which are on the table for those of you here at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel, and we're asking you to complete that. It's important for us to be in touch with you and to get that information out. Now, the Jamaica Observer of November 10, 2019 quotes our next speaker as saying, "I am very excited that I can play a role in contributing to national development in its various aspects, economic, social, environmental, the opportunity to improve the quality of life for many people." He's none other than Dr. Wayne Henry. He's the Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, and we now invite him to bring remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Archibald Gordon, the Honorable Audley Shaw, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, the Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, Minister of State in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Her Excellency Ambassador Marianne Van Steed, Head of the Delegation of the European Union in Jamaica, Mrs. Marlene Street Forest, Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, Ms. Irene Dankwa, Program Manager of the ICR facility in Ghana, Ms. Charmaine Brim, Technical Specialist and Chair of the Social Enterprise Working Group at the Planning Institute of Jamaica, distinguished facilitators and panelists, other distinguished guests, representatives from ministries, departments and agencies of the government, academia, international development partners, social enterprise practitioners, and representatives of the media. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
I always have to say it twice, right? There's an old church in a village, and it had a bell that hadn't been rung in a long time. And a young man came and said to the priest, "Father, can I try and ring the bell?" And the priest says, "Well, it hadn't been rung in a long time, but if you want to try, go ahead." And so the young man climbed up the steeple tower, and to everyone's surprise, he ran with his face, hit the bell, and the bell rang, bang, 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 and he ran again and hit it with his face, bang, bang. Went a third time and he missed the bell and fell off the tower. And he was all right. The paramedics came and were attending to him. And the paramedic said, "Father, do you know this young man?" And the priest said, "Well, to be honest, I don't know his name, but his face rings a bell." It's my...
That's pretty good.
It's my distinct pleasure to be here today at the project closeout ceremony of the Investment Climate Reform ICR facility in Jamaica through its project Business Environment Reform for the Social Enterprise SE sector in Jamaica. I'm particularly pleased to see the developments that have taken place to build out and strengthen the social enterprise ecosystem in Jamaica, as this sector is critical in addressing many of Jamaica's social, environmental, and cultural issues. In 2019, I attended the first National Consultation Forum, which focused on Jamaica's reform agenda to develop the legislative framework for social enterprises in Jamaica. Today, I see the actualization of the discussions arising from the National Forum, culminating in the draft Social Enterprise Legal Status Act, which reflects determination, focus, and hard work. Congratulations to the teams from the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, MIIC, and the Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, for their successful application for technical assistance from the ICR facility, which resulted in the development of a draft Social Enterprise Legal Status Act for presentation to the Chief Parliamentary Council, CPC, the development of a marketing strategy and resource mobilization plan to provide a guide and roadmap for SEs to access additional markets, and capacity building training workshops with representatives of approximately 40 organizations, which included public officials, government facilitators, and private sector stakeholders in the areas of institutional reform on how to apply policy activities within their organization's scope of work based on new legislation developed, identify stakeholder roles and responsibilities for partnership, identify and understand the difference and relationships between social enterprise and CSR, and explore the concept of corporate and social partnerships. Jamaica faces several social, environmental, and cultural issues inimical to its development. Social enterprises are playing a crucial role in highlighting these issues and devising solutions through positive contribution to aggregate demand, social inclusion, and economic gains. In fact, data derived from a recent mapping exercise of the social enterprise landscape in Jamaica, conducted by the British Council and USAID FHI 360, revealed that the majority of social enterprises in Jamaica are operating as micro-enterprises and are less than 7 years old, with 43% of social enterprises headed by women. Social enterprises are locally grounded, 50% operate in their local or provincial area, 24% focus on their neighborhood, and 12% offer services nationally, and 6% operate internationally. The largest proportion of social enterprises operate in the distribution and retail sector, 25%, which mirrors the traditional MSME sector in Jamaica. The agricultural sector is home to the second largest number of respondents, followed by social care, 9%, the creative industry, 8%, healthcare, 7%. Social enterprises also operate in industries relating to housing, culture, employment and skills training, and financial support. 69% of social enterprises reinvest surplus revenue in fulfilling their social mission. For 38% of social enterprises, surplus revenue was used to support job creation for their targeted beneficiaries. The main objectives of social enterprises in Jamaica are to create employment opportunities, provide training opportunities for people from a specific population or group, address financial exclusion, support vulnerable children and young people, and improve a particular community. The accomplishments gained and activities undertaken within the social enterprise sector align with and will contribute to accomplishing the goals of Vision 2030 Jamaica and its intended outcomes. Specifically, Goal 1, Outcome number 4, which is authentic and transformational culture. Goal 3, Outcome number 7, a stable macroeconomy. Outcome number 8, an enabling business environment. And outcome number 12, internationally competitive industry structures. And goal 4, outcome number 13, sustainable management and use of environmental and natural resources. Within this context, therefore, we commend the ICR facility's intervention in Jamaica, which has advanced the process towards seeking cabinet approval for the Social Enterprise Legal Status Act in Jamaica. It is also anticipated that it will spur further administrative reform to strengthen relevant institutions, such as the Companies Office of Jamaica, COJ, the Tax Administration of Jamaica, TAJ, and the Department of Cooperatives and Friendly Societies, DCFS, which will further support the build-out of the social enterprise ecosystem in a manner that is efficient and effective. In closing, I extend gratitude to the ICR team in Ghana, the team from Social Enterprise UK, and the British Council team in Jamaica, who efficiently coordinated the project's implementation in Jamaica. It is through collaborations such as these that together we make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Henry. So, you stole my thunder there at the beginning. That's at the end. That's exactly how I was going to end. To point out that you said in your speech, and you're from the PIOJ, so we should listen. You're the people with the data, that social enterprises will assist in Jamaica achieving Vision 2030, which is to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. Now, on this question of doing business, if we're talking about business and investment and seriously talking about it, then that conversation has to include the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and particularly because of a headline in Bloomberg Business Week on January 18, 2019, and my next guest, I'm sure, remembers it well. Now, I'm from media, and very often when you hear about Jamaica, these are not the kind of headlines you see internationally, but this one was something, glorious. It said, "Welcome to Jamaica, home of the world's best performing stock market." Pause and let's just, the world's best performing stock market, Jamaica. So I now invite Mrs. Marlene Street Forrest, the Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, to deliver her remarks.
Thank you. Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Archibald Gordon, the Honorable Audley Shaw, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, Minister of State in that same ministry, Her Excellency Ambassador Marianne Van Steen, Head of Delegation, European Union in Jamaica, Dr. Wayne Henry, Director General, Planning Institute of Jamaica, Ms. Charmaine Brim, Technical Specialist, Socio-Economic Development Chairperson, Enterprise Working Group, Ms. Irene Danquo, Program Manager, ICR Facility in Ghana, Mr. Damian Campbell, ICR Key Deliverer Facilitator, panelists, social enterprise practitioners, guests joining online, good morning. Yes, I want that good morning too. Good morning. The Jamaica Stock Exchange and the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange are honored to have been asked to give brief remarks at this important event today. This closeout ceremony is truly a celebration of a project that has been well executed. The JSC wishes to commend the British Council through the ICR facility for this intervention assistance. We also commend the Planning Institute of Jamaica and the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, which saw the need for this intervention and successfully applied for technical assistance from the ICR facility, and having received it, delivered through hard and dedicated work to fulfill its objectives. And I want to emphasize on that because many times we get these facilities and they are not as successful. This one is really successful. Through first-hand involvement and participation with this facility and as the Jamaica Stock Exchange and Social Stock Exchange, and in participation and discussion and feedback, we are aware that not only were stakeholders both buy-in sought and received, but that the sector had benefited from training and spirited conversation throughout this engagement. I know about that, Charmaine. We are confident that this will enable us to elevate and sustain the development of the social sector, which is so critical to the total and overall development of investment climate in Jamaica. It is not one-sided. It has to involve all parts. The Jamaica Social Stock Exchange shares in the conviction that the development and strengthening of social enterprise ecosystem is not only good for those operating within the sector, but for Jamaica, as it will provide the overall inclusiveness and access to capital that is needed by those who operate within this sector. Very critical, that access to capital. And I know the minister understands what I mean by that. The result will be the significantly positive impact on our productivity levels and all other measurements of economic growth and development, including quality of life. We are indeed pleased and encouraged that we have now developed a Social Enterprise Legal Status Act, which incorporates the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange within it. We're really thankful because many times you go out on a limb and you don't see that buy-in, but the fact that this is now included in the Act demonstrates that we are here to stay, there's sustainability, and we are happy for that. We thank you for also appreciating our vision, which is no different from yours. I cannot begin to express what an important milestone this is in our development, not only to the JSSE itself, but the sustainability of this sector, as it will now provide for this sector, as with other sectors in the economy, a structured gateway through which social enterprises, those SMEs, can access equity capital to deliver on their commitment for social development and provide a framework and a system for more inclusion, and really inclusion, including the participation of the investing community. So it is a total involvement that we are seeing based on this intervention. We are deeply appreciative of this facility as well, as through this and the level of work that has been concluded, we were able to demonstrate to other countries seeking to institute SSE, that social stock exchanges, that we have developed a model that is worthy of emulation, as Jamaica's social sector ecosystem will entrench government and private sector participation to fulfill the goal of social sector development. And I'll tell you, recently, India, through the Samhita study on social stock exchanges, informed that of the 7 SSE that their study reviewed, only 3 are still functional. And that's critical, because what it means now with the entrenchment of the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange within that act, it speaks to sustainability. We will be functional for a long, long time. One of the hooks that we will have for sustainability has been made possible through the work and deliverable of the ICR facility, and how this intervention has been conceptualized and executed has been for the good of the Jamaica. Jamaica can now be a reference point for the world on a framework for social sector development and the sustainability of SSEs. Given the success of the facility and the level of work that still lies ahead, the JSSE looks forward to a phase 2, to continue the work of bolstering the foundation that has now been set, and we look forward to participating in what is next to come. Again, we are truly appreciative of the inclusiveness of this project, its successful implementation, and congratulations to all who showed high levels of motivation and commitment to the task of elevating the social sector. The intervention was timely and it was well received. And this is really one of the pillars that will be advancing Vision 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Street Forest. Now, having made one headline, you sound like you're aiming for a couple of others. I heard you say there that Jamaica can now be a reference point for others and a model as well, and that we're able to demonstrate to other countries the success of a measure such as this, and just the importance overall of partnership. Now, one of the key partners on this project has been the delegation of the European Union in Jamaica. So to deliver remarks and to just remind us what's in it for the EU in Jamaica, we'd like to welcome Her Excellency Ambassador Marian Van Steen, who is head of delegation of the European Union in Jamaica.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Archibald Gordon. Honorable Minister Audley Shaw, Minister for Industry, Investment and Commerce, and Honorable Minister of State in the same ministry, Dr. Norman Dunn, Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, Dr. Wayne Henry, and Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, Mrs. Marlene Street Forrest. I'm very honored to share these introductory words with all of you. And I would also like to greet everyone who is present here and connected online, social enterprise practitioners, public and private stakeholders, all the participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my great pleasure to be here today to acknowledge an important milestone in the life cycle of the ICR, the Investment Climate Reform Facility, here in Jamaica. This event marks the closing of the Jamaica segment of the project. However, this is not the end. Rather the beginning, as I have been told that because of the important groundwork laid, there is a great potential for further development. Note, I'm not saying we will have a phase 2, but there is potential, and there is indeed potential as well about what everyone has learned here and what I guess the ministry can also do, or what is going to be the next steps. As has been mentioned before, this project has been financed by a consortium of partners, and I'm very glad that the European Union is one of them. It worked on the basis of demand, and we have seen that indeed the PIOJ and the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce made that request. And that is the reason why we are here, and that we have seen the successful development of this project. Ladies and gentlemen, improving the investment climate and business environment in our partner countries has been at the center of the European Union's development agenda for years now, with full evidence of the struggles that the pandemic has created on both the health and economic situations of many citizens all over the world. We have now more than ever the obligation or the plight to ensure that more and more countries are working towards creating a more resilient and inclusive society. There are many ways, and I've heard already two, to define what is a social enterprise, but the fundamental objective of a social enterprise is that they do business for social purposes, helping their communities, and trying to contribute to solving social and also environmental problems. And because of their focus, they are key partners to engage with to achieve the famous Sustainable Development Goals, and of course also Vision 2030. But they do need an enabling business environment. Here in Jamaica, I already referred to Vision 2030, social enterprises have existed since indeed a long time. I heard more than 100 years. I didn't know it was that long, but that is quite impressive. And 75% of the social enterprises here in Jamaica are operating in their local provincial area. They're focusing on their neighborhood. They're reinvesting their surplus revenue to fulfilling their social objectives and to support job creation for their targeted beneficiaries. That include minority groups and vulnerable groups. The social enterprise sector in Jamaica is therefore one of the key partners for generating sustainable and inclusive economic growth in Jamaica. The sector has a high potential to help provide solutions to the social and environmental issues that faces Jamaica, but which is indeed a statement you can make globally, because that is the case in many, many other countries in the world as well. I'm very happy to note that some significant steps have been taken in the context of the project, and they have been mentioned before as well. I would like to repeat the preparation of a draft Social Enterprise Legal Status Act, and I'm looking at both ministers present here today, because I think it is a big responsibility on their shoulders to make sure that something's going to happen with the draft. No? Secondly, the preparation of a social enterprise marketing plan and resource mobilization plan, which is very important to raise public awareness across the society. And I would also like to refer quickly to 4 awareness raising, knowledge increasing workshops that have been organized in the context of this project. I'm very happy to learn that the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce and the Planning Institute of Jamaica are keen, and I hope they are indeed keen, to take the outputs from this intervention forward, and we are very much looking forward to see what are the next steps, and if they would need to involve a second phase, I'm sure that that will at least be examined and studied and evaluated. The fact that this is the first ICR facility intervention to be completed in the Caribbean is a good sign. Yeah, that deserves an applause. It augurs well for the potential of this initiative to play a significant role in improving the business environment and the investment climate for social enterprises in Jamaica. I'm gonna end by thanking everyone who was involved in making sure that this project was a success. And I very much hope that it has been able to contribute to benefit the social enterprises, because that is what it was all about. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. You say you're not saying there will be a phase 2 right now, but I'll speak it into being. I'll speak it into being. And we're also noting your point of confidence there that it's the first to be completed in the Caribbean, so that is certainly a really, a great thing and a good opportunity. So, time now to hear our remarks from our next guest. So whether it's in his role as an MP, in his previous role as Minister of Finance and the Public Service, or in his current role as Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, there is hardly a speech in which he does not talk about the importance of investment and of business and of reform, of reforming the environment for both. To bring remarks, I'd like to invite the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, the Honorable Audley Shaw, to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you very much to our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Gordon. Let me recognize, first of all, my colleague Minister of State, Dr. Dunn, Her Excellency, Ambassador Marianne Van Steen, Head of Delegation of the European Union, Dr. Wayne Henry, the Director General of the PIOJ, Mrs. Marlene Street Forrest, Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, with whom I was very pleased in 2009 to launch the Junior Stock Exchange. And I was also very pleased when I came back in March of 2016 to stop its closure, which was planned by the previous government, and it's still in operation. And that is why we were celebrated in New York in 2019. All right, back to my script. Let me also recognize Ms. Charmaine Brim and Mrs. Irene Danquah and all the other persons who are either here with us or are remotely with us, and members of the media, and ladies and gentlemen, good morning, everyone. Social enterprises and social entrepreneurship approaches have been increasingly adopted as a medium for community intervention programs and have emerged as a meaningful vehicle in the support of sustained social and economic development. The concept of social enterprises is relatively new in Jamaica. However, the practice has long been a part of our landscape. Social enterprises are typically community-based organizations and have not previously been properly recognized in our economy. The Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, in the recently revised MSME policy, gave formal recognition to social enterprises, defining them as a business whose mission is to solve social, economic, or environmental problems at the community or national level through effective and ethical business practices with the reinvestment of profits to the social mission. Cooperatives, associations, foundations, non-profit organizations, as well as bodies established as commercial enterprises, fall under the umbrella of social enterprises. Over the years, Jamaica has benefited significantly from these entities, although their contribution has never been formally quantified. Social enterprises are becoming extremely important to the Jamaican landscape, adding significant MSMEs in areas such as agriculture, industry, services, and the entertainment sector. Social enterprises combined with a social objective and an entrepreneurial dimension has proven to be very effective in addressing unemployment, poverty, crime, prostitution, and violence in many inner cities and rural communities. My intention is not to convince you that social enterprises are a panacea to our socio-economic challenges, but it would be remiss of me not to highlight its importance as a route to sustainable social transformation and its role in addressing the challenges faced by excluded or disadvantaged groups. There is currently no specific legal framework for social enterprises, and as such they have to register as a charity or a benevolent society under the Friendly Societies Act, or as a limited liability company under the Companies Act of Jamaica, impacting on their ability to access funding or equity at competitive rates. This also restricts their ability to gain greater visibility and to demonstrate the value they provide more widely. An overarching legal framework will therefore assist in achieving a formal system with legal form or status, a clearly defined arrangement for registration, easier access to resources. An established legal framework should be created so that the social value of these enterprises can be properly measured. The government of Jamaica recognizes that social enterprises can uplift and place more Jamaicans at the center of the nation's development agenda. They are aligned to Jamaica's Vision 2030 National Development Plan, particularly in relation to strategies aimed at poverty reduction, environmental protection, and employment of the marginalized. We also recognize that social enterprises are critical supporting pillars in Jamaica's commitment to the attainment of the country's Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. As such, in 2020, with the support of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, my ministry successfully applied to the Investment Climate Reform ICR facility for technical assistance through its project Business Environment Reform for the social enterprise sector in Jamaica. The project has come to a close, having successfully achieved its objectives of the development of a draft social enterprise legal status act and a marketing strategy and resource mobilization plan. Workshops were also conducted for public officials, government facilitators, and private sector stakeholders. My ministry, and by extension the government of Jamaica, wishes to express our heartfelt thanks to the European Union and the ICR facility for its support in the provision of this technical assistance. The development of the proposed draft legislation for Jamaica's Social Enterprise Legal Status Act is a significant milestone given its importance to the development of this nascent sector. The opportunities around and abound and are limitless with the reform of the sector. I can foresee Jamaican social enterprises listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange through the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange, which is a subsidiary of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. And yes, this is not in my script, but I'll say it too, that I am also supporting, as part of the drive towards formality in the economy, I am supporting the establishment of a micro stock exchange in Jamaica as well. Back to the script. This will allow them to raise funding for their projects and programs through donations facilitated under the Jamaica Social Investment Market. With additional technical assistance, social enterprises will be better positioned to create opportunities for a more sustainable business environment, contributing to job creation and economic growth, as well as improving livelihoods, especially for people in poor and marginalized communities. The preliminary report is now with the ministry's legal unit for review. On completion of that review, our lawyers will prepare the necessary drafting instructions for the Chief Parliamentary Council to examine. I note that a key feature of this closing out ceremony is a presentation of the preliminary report of the proposed draft Legal Status Act, as well as the marketing and resource mobilization plan. I am sure that the panel discussions to follow will be informative, and I look forward to the outcomes. In closing, let me reiterate the ministry's commitment to facilitate and promote the MSME sector under which the social enterprises fall, as we seek to recover from the most devastating COVID-19 pandemic, which has shattered the world's economies and destroyed lives and livelihoods. I see social enterprises as a catalyst to uplift communities through the creation of jobs, a crime reduction strategy, and a vehicle to achieving overall economic growth and development. Let me remind everyone, Jamaica has had periods of significant economic growth. In the 1960s, we grew by 6% per year. By 1971, in one single year, we grew by 11%. Then we started having experiments of different kinds. I'm not calling any names. Any of you want to do further research, you check out who was in charge when, okay? But of interest, though, I must leave with you that in that history since independence, and the unfortunate setbacks that we have had, where we have now come used to 1% and 2% growth, we have had terrible setbacks. One finance minister in one government that served for 18 years, he served for 14 years, his total growth for the 14 years was the same 11% that we grew by in 1971 in one single year. We have a lot of work to do. Everything helps towards productivity, and that's one of the big issues here. Let me assure the ICR that this government will do all it can to ensure the success of social enterprises in Jamaica. Thank you for your generous support in providing us with a very timely and important technical support. Thank you, and may God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Minister Shaw. I'm a journalist, so I can't refuse headlines when I hear them. So I heard you there say, I foresee social enterprises being listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Mrs. Street Forest, you heard that too, right? Okay, that's fantastic. Just making sure we're hearing the same thing. All right, so it is now time to hear about those key deliverables which originated from the project. And to take us through this segment of the presentation, we now have Mr. Damien Campbell. He is Program Manager at the British Council.
The Honourable Minister, Ministry of Industry, Investment, Commerce, the Honourable Audley Shaw, the Honourable Minister of State, Dr. Norman Dunn, the Head of Delegation of the European Union in Jamaica, Her Excellency Ambassador Mariam Van Steen, the Managing Director for the Jamaica Stock Exchange, Mistress Marlene Street Forest, the Director General for the Planning Institute of Jamaica, Dr. Wayne Henry, Ms. Charmaine Brim, Technical Expert in the Planning Institute of Jamaica, Mr. Owen Shaw, Head of the MSME Division, ladies and gentlemen, other distinguished guests, good morning to you. It is indeed a pleasure for me to stand here to participate in the celebration of the completion of two key pieces of work. One of our responsibilities at the British Council was to hire the work and support of key consultants who are experts in their field to produce quality work with the support of stakeholders in Jamaica from across the private sector, the public sector, and in our communities. So we brought on board the support of two key consultants here in Jamaica, Ms. Renee Gale, our legal consultant, and Ms. Anna Toby, who is our marketing consultant on this project. They have done some wonderful work, which I really want to congratulate them on that exceptional pieces of document that they have developed. At this moment, we will afford them the opportunity to share with us some key aspects of the pieces of work that they have developed. We're asking for your attention, your keen ears, as you listen to what they will share with us. For those who are listening online and watching online, we also ask that you share any questions that you have. I think one thing that we believe in here in Jamaica as a British Council, as a government and stakeholders, is quality feedback from the public as we seek to validate these pieces of document that will move forward to be implemented hereafter. So we introduce to the podium now Ms. Renee Gale, the legal consultant who will be going through the legal status document.
Thank you for that introduction, Mr. Campbell. And let me say a very warm good morning to the Honorable Minister, Honorable Audley Shaw, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Dr. Norman Dunn, Minister of State, Her Excellency Ambassador Marion Van Steen, Head of the EU Delegation in Jamaica, Dr. Wayne Henry, Director General of the PIOJ, Mrs. Marlene Street Forrest, Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Let me also say a warm good morning to my colleagues who assisted with this project. Ms. Charmaine Brim, the Technical Specialist in the Planning Institute of Jamaica, and Mr. Oral Shaw, the Head of the MSME Division, as well as Ms. Irene Dankwa, joining us online from Ghana, who is a program manager for the ICR facility, as well as Mr. Damian Campbell, who so warmly introduced me, and he is here as a representative from the British Council. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity to present to you this morning the Draft Legal Status Act, and thank you more so for the opportunity to be a part of this very important intervention. It was indeed very heartwarming for me to learn this morning that it was the first ICR facility conducted within the Caribbean, and I'm very proud to have been part of such an important intervention. As you all would have heard from others this morning, social enterprises have long been a part of the social fabric within Jamaica in various forms. I have been a proud part of the cooperative movement within Jamaica, and for many of you who don't know, credit unions are in fact a form of social enterprise with the mission of people helping people. And so this intervention had as its aim to introduce legislation, which is an important element of ensuring that we have an enabling ecosystem for social enterprises within Jamaica. And as you have heard from the ambassador as well as from the minister, social enterprises are in fact a critical pillar to achieving not only the sustainable development goals, but also Vision 2030, my apologies. So I am indeed very grateful to have been given the opportunity to assist with ensuring that we develop an enabling framework for social enterprises in Jamaica so that they can continue to serve as a catalyst for the upliftment of our communities and a vehicle for achieving economic growth and development. And so this morning I'm going to walk you through some of the key outcomes of this ICR intervention, as well as to provide an overview of the legislation which you have heard will be presented to the Cabinet and which is currently with the Ministry for presentation to the Chief Parliamentary Council. And so before I get into the legislation itself, I want us to first consider the background and context which gave need to this legislation, the background and context which resulted in us identifying the fact that we need to put in a little more work in terms of ensuring that we have an enabling legal framework within Jamaica. So one of the first steps in developing this legislation was a comprehensive desk review of model legislation and best practices from around the world. And I am indeed very happy to have heard this morning the fact that Jamaica can possibly serve as a reference point for other jurisdictions. And I thank you so much for that observation, Mrs. Street Forest. And in fact, this ICR facility has been a very collaborative process, and already we have been contacted by our colleagues as far away as in Ghana and Kenya to hear from us the lessons that we have learned through this facility. Because as you would have also heard, social enterprises have been around in Jamaica for quite some time, but without that enabling legislation which has afforded them, or which could have afforded them, with recognized legal status, they have been operating under a system of self-identification. And the major problem with this system is that when there is no clear definition of social enterprises, when there is no clear criteria as to who or what types of entities qualify as social enterprises, we muddy the waters and we don't get to see the true scale of their impact, which we already know from the mapping exercises which have been done so far and anecdotal data that that impact is quite significant. And so, in addition to the comprehensive desk review of existing legislation and best practices from around the world, what we also did was to engage in extensive stakeholder consultations. And many of you who are in fact present this morning participated in those workshops and dialogue, and we are very grateful to you for the support that you have shown, but more so the enthusiasm that was displayed in those workshops. We know that within Jamaica we have a ready body of persons who are cheerleaders for social enterprises, and that's very important to recognize, because we're confident that once this legislation makes its way to Parliament, that we will have the full support of not only the public sector but also the private sector and Jamaicans at large. And so in conducting this desk review, we identified that there were currently several gaps which would have served as barriers for social enterprises. And some of those barriers, as I mentioned, would have included the lack of a clear and established definition for social enterprises, and the lack of that recognized legal status, which would have resulted in that informal and ad hoc process of self-identification, as well as the absence of appropriate monitoring and oversight of their governance and operations, which resulted in the sector developing in a very fragmented and ad hoc way. Because as you would imagine, if we have not set formal criteria for social enterprises, if we don't have a clear definition of social enterprises, then it makes it even more difficult for us to truly measure their impact. And that is something that we're hoping that this legislation will address. Other barriers included the limited access to credits and other funding, which would have resulted from the lack of a formal status. And I'm very happy to see Mrs. Street Forest here, and we're very excited for the full rollout of the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange, and also very interesting announcement from the minister this morning that they're also considering a micro stock exchange. I think that that will be quite interesting to see that materialize. But in any case, we know that we already have the social stock exchange, which would provide a very important opportunity for social enterprises to access funding, which is also one of the key barriers which we identified. And so the primary goal of this intervention, therefore, was to address these barriers through the introduction of an enabling legislation, which we hope will assist with the promotion, development, and visibility of social enterprises within Jamaica. More specifically, we are hoping that this legislation will give statutory recognition to social enterprises by introducing a formal legal status. The legislation will also articulate a clear definition of social enterprises and the accompanying criteria for qualification. And we also want to ensure that the process for registering as a social enterprise is very simple, efficient, and predictable, because that is one of the things coming out of our dialogue with social enterprises, that if we're going to be introducing formality, we want to ensure that it's very easy for them to comply. Also, we will be developing a register of social enterprises. This will ensure, for example, that persons who are interested in serving as donors and investors in social enterprises can access this register to ensure that due diligence is conducted and they can actually confirm that this entity is a registered social enterprise. And so this formality is also another element which will assist social enterprises in having greater access to funding, which is very important. We also heard from social enterprises that tax incentives or other form of fiscal incentives are important, at least in the initial stages of the legislation, when we want to ensure that not only that there is uptake, but that we give them that initial push to ensure their development. And once they have reached a more mature stage within their business cycle, these tax incentives will have, a gradual reduction. So that is something that we're considering with the legislation. There are some additional spin-offs that we're anticipating from the introduction of the Legal Status Act, which is a bolstered governance capacity, record keeping, and operations for social enterprises. Because coming out of the dialogue, we did recognize a very clear and distinct need for capacity building among social enterprise actors. And so this legislation will also aim to assist with that. One of the ways in which it does that is by including in the legislation itself model documents which social enterprises can utilize. So in the application process, for example, instead of social enterprises having to decide for themselves or engage legal counsel to determine what their constitution should look like, what their social mission statement should look like, model documents and templates are provided within the legislation, and this will help with their capacity building. And we're talking about the possibility of a phase 2. I believe that this will be a very critical element of any phase 2, ensuring that we have that ongoing capacity building support for social enterprises, because we do want, in introducing this formality, to also ensure that they have the means of meeting the registration, reporting, accounting, and other obligations, which will also, of course, improve their business capacity. And so that is embedded not only within the legislation, but within this overall framework. The added formality as a spin-off will also have the benefit of increasing the opportunities for social enterprises to participate in the public procurement process. And here I do have to commend the ministry. I have to commend Mr. Shaw, as well as a team from the PIOJ, for the work that they have done in introducing this carve-out within the MSME policy for MSMEs, including social enterprises, to access public procurement. And we think that this will be something which will really assist them in integrating within the formal economy and getting very key government contracts, as well as demonstrating their value through the performance of those contracts. I'm very excited to hear from my colleague, Ms. Anna Toby, who is a marketing consultant, all the plans that we will have for the communication and rollout of this legislation and all the additional work that will be done with this intervention, and that will allow us to achieve greater visibility and heightened public awareness of social enterprises. And finally, having in place the registry, having in place the clear definition and qualifying criteria for social enterprises will now enable us to properly monitor and measure the sector. And we will try to utilize standardized metrics for the data collection. And in doing so, we can truly measure what the social value of social enterprises are, what is the social value that they bring. And this will also allow us to have more synchronized efforts towards policy and program support by government agencies, as well as other multilateral agencies. So we're going to turn now to look at some of the key takeaways from the dialogue, and then we're going to look at some of the key elements of the legislation. So having engaged in extensive dialogue with social enterprises themselves and having shared with them a prior draft of the legislation, we were able to hear directly from social enterprises how they think this legislation will benefit them and what changes they might require to the legislation. And coming out of that dialogue, many of the entities which self-identify as social enterprises, we recognize that they may not meet the typical criteria for social enterprise, which would make that label or that status aspirational for some. And while we don't necessarily want to try to fit square pegs into round holes, we did recognize that at least in the early stages of the passage of this legislation, we wanted it to be a little bit more all-encompassing and inclusive so that we can help social enterprises to graduate, for want of a better word, to a more advanced stage within their business cycle and closer to what we believe the thresholds and the criteria for social enterprises should be. So there was some relaxation of the requirements, having heard from social enterprises themselves, and this specifically had to do with the initial thresholds that were included as it relates to the threshold for the amount of trading that we expect social enterprises to conduct, the threshold for the percentage of their profits that should be from trading as opposed to from donations and other investments, for example, and also the percentage of those profits that we expect them to reinvest into their social mission. Also, we had included a requirement for inclusive governance as part of the qualifying criteria. However, based on the feedback from the social enterprise, instead of having this included as a qualifying criteria, it is a recurrent theme throughout the legislation based on all the requirements that we have for transparency and accountability. And so we embedded it then in the various provisions and requirements themselves, as opposed to having it as a separate qualifying criteria. And as I would have indicated before, social enterprises have stated that at least in the early stages, they will be hoping for some fiscal incentives to help boost their development. Now, based on the work of the Social Enterprise Working Group coming out of the ministry, the definition of social enterprise, which we landed on, was an entity with a defined social mission set out in its constitution to contribute to solving social, economic, environmental, or cultural problems at a community, national, or international levels through ethical business practices, with a significant portion of profits being reinvested in the social mission. Now, based on that definition, we can see the qualifying criteria coming out, which is that we expect social enterprises to be, one, engaging in ongoing economic activity. Two, they must pursue an explicit social mission, which we would expect them to set out in writing in their social mission statements on registration. Social enterprises will also have limits on the distribution of profits or the transfer of their assets. And this is to ensure that they prioritize the social aim. This is to ensure that they're reinvesting the majority of their profits back to the social aim. And this is to ensure that the legislation is shielded from abuse by persons or entities that aren't truly social enterprises. Also, we have the requirement that they must be independent of the state, as is best practice in other jurisdictions. Now, as I would have mentioned earlier, one of the key avenues for funding that we anticipate will be the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange. So in addition to the criteria which I've already mentioned, those entities that are interested in listing on the JSSE will also have to be a selected qualified entity of the JSSE. They will be subject to the JSSE's listing requirements, and they will have to adhere to the operating procedures of the JSSE in addition to those earlier requirements. Now, I spoke of the need or the consideration for tax incentives, and many of you who might have read the paper this morning will see an article from me speaking of the reconsideration of tax incentives as it relates to foreign investors. But while internationally there is a move away from offering tax incentives for our local circumstances, we do consider that there are times when it might be necessary at least to spur industries and entities that we will know that once they get that push, they will contribute to national development. So we've already heard from the minister in terms of the impact of the junior stock exchange, and they do benefit from income tax relief, at least in the initial stages for a limited period. And these are the sorts of things that we're considering for social enterprises. So we would have mentioned the public procurement carve-out that currently exists. We are looking for encouraging entities, as well as through the Development Bank of Jamaica, offering concessionary loans to social enterprises. We are considering offering tax credits for engaging in the social mission activities, as well as income tax relief on the reinvested income, offering possibly lower rates of general consumption tax on output for the first 5 years, or a deferral of that GCT, as well as a reduced rate on dividends paid to shareholders. Now, none of this is guaranteed. This is all part of the policy considerations that are currently ongoing. And we would have done extensive work with the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. But for these matters, this would fall within the portfolio of the Ministry of Finance. And so there will be dialogue that needs to happen between both ministries for us to finally land on what the incentive package might look like. But for now, we are sharing with you some of the options available so that we can at least appreciate that there are a range of options, and it might not necessarily mean the traditional income tax relief, etc. One thing that we do consider important to be a part of that package is the income tax relief for the donors and investors in social enterprises, similar to that which currently obtains for donors to charities, and we think that that will be particularly critical, especially considering the challenges that social enterprises currently have with accessing finance. We want to ensure that they can, properly attract donors, and that donors to social enterprises can get some value for those donations. And so this is something that we definitely strongly encourage to be included as part of the incentives package. I would have already briefly mentioned the thresholds, and so I think that provides a fair overview of what the legislation currently looks like without getting too granular. And we know that the legislation is already with the legal departments within the ministry, and the drafting instructions are being prepared, and we definitely look forward to the legislation being prioritized so that we can have it in place in very short order. And so my call to action would be to the ministry and to those of us present today to do what is within our power to ensure that the legislation receives the attention and the priority that it deserves so that we can have it in place in very short order. And so I thank you all for listening to me this morning, and I'm very excited to hand over shortly to my colleague who has served as a marketing consultant and who I am certain will get us very excited about all the plans that are on stream for how we will give social enterprises the recognition in the public that they truly deserve. I see representatives here from DEFCON. That's perhaps one of our most notable and recognizable social enterprise. But I'm looking forward to a day when I can, ask any Jamaican to tell me a social enterprise, and in addition to DEFCON, they can name me a dozen. And not only can they readily name those social enterprises, but they can demonstrate their commitment to supporting those social enterprises. And so the public recognition is very important so that we know that we can put our dollars to good use by, if it doesn't mean necessarily being a donor or an investor, but you can be a customer and a supporter of social enterprises. And so I look forward to hearing from Ms. Anna Toby.
Renee Gale. Thank you very much, Ms. Renee Gale. She's a local consultant who worked on the draft Legal Status Act, one of the key deliverables out of the ICR facility. And now we are about to hear from Ms. Anna Toby. She's a local consultant who works specifically on the marketing and resource mobilization plan, and that's going to be key in order to ensure that, Ms. Gale gets to accomplish that wish. She said that she's looking forward to a day when Jamaicans will know the names of social enterprises, not just the ones which you know, like DEFCON, which we know as much, which we know a lot about, but a lot of the other people working in the field. And in order for that to happen, we have to market it. People need to know about social enterprises, know about their involvement, and know what can actually be done and what's actually possible. So how are we going to do that? Let's hear from Ms. Toby.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Archibald Gordon. Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. Good morning to the Honorable Minister, Audley Shaw, Minister of Industry, Investments and Commerce, the Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, Minister of State within the same ministry, Her Excellency Ambassador Marianne Van Steen, Head of the delegation, that's a delegation of the European Union in Jamaica, Mrs. Marlene Street Forrest, Managing Director, Jamaica Stock Exchange and proud advocate of the sector, Dr. Wayne Henry, Director General, PIOJ, Mrs. Irene Dunqua, Program Manager, ICR Facility Ghana, Ms. Charmaine Brim, Technical Specialist and Chair of the Social Enterprise Working Group, and of course, we can't forget Mr. Damian Campbell, Program Manager, British Council, distinguished facilitators, panelists, and guests all. It's such a pleasure to be here, to be part of this seminal piece of work that is the first ICR facility that has taken place in the Caribbean. And Renee spoke in great detail about all the work that has gone into working towards having a legal status for social enterprise. And for many of us who have been in the trenches for a while, we know how critical and how much of a catalyst that is going to be. So I just want to say once again, thank you, Renee, for all the work you have done. So I know I'm going to be talking about creating a buzz around that work so that we can really see, feel the social enterprises. People can name the 12 social enterprises, but right now I have to recognize Mr. Shauna Mullings, who is back with us from the UK, and who is the founder of another fantastic social enterprise, Next Steps, educational facility, as well as Lanicia Rodan, who has been on the shores doing great work with Link Your Purpose. So what are we going to be doing to create this buzz? So firstly, we start with really building on the awareness that has taken place thus far. For the last 10 or so years, we have heard to various degrees about social enterprises, the work that they have done, sometimes with great frequency, other times it seems quite quiet. But the fact remains that the social enterprises, whether or not they have gotten a lot of promotion and attention, have been quietly doing the work. So here we have Link Your Purpose. Link Your Purpose, started by Lanicia, offers really great career guidance services for Jamaican youth based on their interests, skills, and personality. And they support the academic success of rural youth. One of the key things we are going to be focused on in terms of awareness building is really creating an understanding of who social enterprises are. The more we speak about social enterprises, the more excitement there is, the more people want to be aligned with the movement, the more businesses we see self-identifying as social enterprises. And whilst this is great, it does present some challenges, because from time to time, we realize that entities that may better be defined as charities, better be defined as NGOs, may choose to identify as a social enterprise. So one of the things we are focused on is really clarifying what it is. So a social enterprise is going to be defined as an entity that has an enshrined social mission, is registered, trades in goods and services, and is independent of the state. For us, we are as well focused on creating a repository of information for this group. So we're going to be creating a website, the SOSENT Jamaica certified website, that will be the one-stop shop for people who want to find out about social enterprises, ensure that the social enterprises they support are indeed benchmarked, are indeed legitimate. For our social enterprises also to be trained, to get information, to engage with each other, so it becomes very easy for people to find out who they are and what they're going to be doing. In order to do that, however, we're going to be creating the SOSENT Jamaica Social Enterprise Mark. Very critical to the practitioners, it will allow for easy identification of practitioners. It will help to increase, engender consumer confidence. It will also strengthen confidence in terms of B2B and as well as B2C consumer support. And it will elevate the sector, the profile of the sector. Of course, it will be tied into the legislative framework and issued at 2-year intervals. So once you're registered and once you have managed to, shown that you check off all the boxes, the checklist of the boxes, you will be granted the use of the SOSENT JA mark to be issued at 2-year intervals. So every 2 years, we will be checking just to ensure that the social enterprises that are using it are indeed living up to their promise. Some of the activities that we have planned for year 1 include things like pop-ups, include things like pop-ups, include virtual sales on our SOSENT Jamaica certified website, include hybrid activities, just to engender support and to get the buy-in for the social enterprise sector. Some of the key messages that we will be using: SOSENT JA is certified. They're open for inclusion, open for change, open for love. So imagine a Valentine's Day pop-up exclusively offered by great social enterprises of Jamaica, giving our growing base of social consumers an opportunity to purchase from the brands that they have grown to know and love within the community. Year 2 is really going to be about creating partnerships that would help to engender the growth of the sector. And why we focused on partnerships? Because without partnerships, the sector could not have gotten to where we are today. Here we have an image of Defcan Coffee. Defcan Coffee has, as Renee mentioned, become one of the more notable social enterprise success stories in Jamaica. A large part of that is because they have managed to secure really great partnerships throughout corporate Jamaica. Speak to NCB Foundation, Digicel Foundation, JN Foundation, Jamaica Social Stock Exchange, Jake's, Toyota, and the list goes on and on. But why is that important, and why have they managed to secure such partnerships? The thing about social enterprises that makes them particularly unique is that in many cases they support the base of the pyramid, communities that people are constantly trying to create interventions for, are constantly trying to improve. However, social enterprises offer that extra value of proximity to those communities. Base of the pyramid, they understand the community, they understand the challenge faced, and therefore they understand what solutions work and what solutions don't. And so in working with Defcan, partners will find that their interventions hit the mark, they have value, they see traction, they can measure the impacts. And that is part of the reason that DEFCON has done so well. Another value that social enterprises bring to partnerships is increased brand equity. Because of the fact that they have an enshrined social mission, because of the fact that they are equally tied to both their social impact outcomes as well as their profitability, it means that partners, consumers can have that belief in the work that they're doing and know that when they support them, they would be really contributing to the causes that are near and dear to their heart. Year one was really about setting a foundation for increased awareness. Year two, about creating partnerships. And one of the things that we are proposing is that we also have a mark that helps to identify SOCENT Jamaica allies, because it's important to give them the recognition for the work and the value that they bring to the sector. Unlike the first mark, however, the SOCENT JA ally mark is one that is conferred upon a partner and not one that can be applied for. There are many already that will probably be great candidates for it, but the idea is really to show that we as practitioners can't build a sector alone. There are other partners that are equally important. Having this mark shows that the ecosystem is growing, shows that others have bought into it, adds greater credibility to the movement, to the sector, to help us move forward. Some of the activities that will punctuate the second phase of the strategy will include things like intimate coffee mornings with key stakeholders. So for instance, you have social enterprises that are more geared towards tourism, social enterprises that are geared towards agriculture, agro-processing, social enterprises that have niche towards education. How can we help them find the most strategic partnerships that will allow for value chain integration, so distribution, greater visibility of their work, mentorship, so that they can grow and help their businesses to grow as part of the process. Another key thing in growing the sector is really to bring the community together as a whole. Even though social enterprise has been around for a few years, it's still a bit fragmented in many ways. And so we have incorporated collective exercises. So we have Vision, for instance, SOCENT Certified Vision 22 and Vision 2023. And these are great opportunities for sector players to come together and envision what they can do to take the sector to another level. It is great to have DEFCON on the forefront advocating for social enterprise through the great work, through endorsements of partnerships, but DEFCON alone cannot carry the sector. There are other tremendous actors there who are doing great work, and the idea behind visioning, a collective visioning, is to help people to think a bit outside of the box, because the problems that these social enterprises are trying to solve are tremendous problems. The gaps that they're trying to fill are tremendous financial gaps. So we can't necessarily use the same process or the same strategies to achieve those goals. And so in having these types of exercises, in addition to our promotional exercises, in addition to our website, it would really help social enterprise sector to blossom. Some messages that we are going to be using is that SOCENT Jamaica certified allies are supporting businesses that serve society. SOCENT Jamaica allies are allies for change, and SOCENT Jamaica certified as a group is supported by these allies. Year 3, that's when we really look to cement the work that has been done in the first 2 years. So we move from awareness strategies to partnership to really taking up space, as they say in Jamaica, with social enterprise spaces. So what are social enterprise spaces and what do they look like? A combination of perhaps retail and virtual spaces. Currently, for instance, Fontana has committed shelves to high-quality, locally produced craft items. What would it take to negotiate with them to create spaces for products and services offered by social enterprises? So Fontana is an option. As I said, there's some that are involved in agro-processing. So we need to think of retail opportunities that we can help as a sector to support, who would be willing to support us and who would put us in front of our targeted consumers. Apart from retail spaces, which we have bargained, we are also going to be looking at pop-ups. We're also going to be looking at standalone spaces that belong to social enterprise. Once again, I'm going to reference DEFCON. They have a fantastic training cafe that is also used for bookings for people who want to have intimate meetings and want to support the social enterprise. DEFCON also recently did a fantastic event, the Sip and Sign event, which was really enjoyed by all who attended. But social enterprise spaces aren't just spaces for selling goods and services. Many of them offer tremendous bespoke experiences. I am sure those in the room and those online know of people who have still yet to step foot in Trenchtown, the home of the birthplace of the reigning reggae king, Bob Marley, for many reasons, and we don't need to list them here. But one social enterprise, the Agency for Inner City Renewal, offers lovely experiences in which people can take, an opportunity to go into Trenchtown, soak up the vibes, feel all right, and see what it's about. I don't know how many of you have heard of Bunkers Hill Cultural Experience. It is an eco-adventurer's paradise nestled in deep rural Trelawney. Bunkers Hill Experience also is the home of Tayuna Markins and the trails of Nani of the Maroons and Cujo. Now, who would not want to experience something like that, especially if you're a history buff, if you love adventure? The thing is, though, that Ayr and Bunkers Hill are not outliers. They are actually members of a wider niche or subset of social enterprises that offer these authentic experiences to locals and visitors alike. Some others, Alpha Boys, DEFCON we mentioned, Kingston Creative, which some people may be surprised is also a social enterprise, also offers tremendous experiences for people who are interested in supporting the sector. The thing about social enterprises, though, integration into tourism is not just beneficial to them. They offer ready-made experiences that can allow Jamaica to take part of that growing trend in tourism known as sustainable tourism. Statista has benchmarked it or valued it at $333 billion by the year 2027, which means that if we were to really look at social enterprises and their experiences, it is a great way for Jamaica to really pursue that growth and development in that part of tourism. Some of the messages we'll be looking at for year 3. So Century A, Sales for Inclusion. So Century A, Spaces for Inclusion. So Century A, Sales for Earth Love. And at this point in time, I would like to play this message for you. I'm sorry, can we restart it? Because it's a little low. Okay, I will just, should I continue or are we going to be able to play it? Okay. Okay, that was an example of a PSA that was done recently under the Social Enterprise Boost Initiative, a collaborative project by JN Foundation and USAID. Once again, it featured some really great social enterprises doing tremendous work and with a powerful message. This time around, our message is different, because it's going to be just as compelling as that was. In parting, I would just like to say, going forward, I would like to leave you with a few thoughts. When you think of social enterprise in Jamaica, let us recognize that social enterprise started here with a son of Jamaican soil, Marcus Garvey. It was a gift to the world through the creation of the Black Starliner. Let us remember as well that Jamaica has the most developed framework for the social enterprise ecosystem. Let us remember as well that we have a government that has recognized social enterprise as a sector and is actively supporting it. And it's not the same everywhere in the world. Speaking with consultant colleagues in Ghana recently, they explained that they were having challenges. They were having significant challenges getting the government to pay attention to the work they were doing. So Jamaica, let's not waste the opportunity that we have with social enterprise and the developments that we have made thus far. Let's go for gold with social enterprise. It can be done. It's important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anna Toby there. She is marketing and resource. She was in charge of the marketing and resource mobilization plan. I love the idea of ending the plan, 3-year plan, by talking about taking up space, because it's a big issue in the social entrepreneurship sector. It's important to understand the significance of these businesses, and the fact that they can take up space, and that they are in fact taking up space as it is. Now we're going to be having our second panel, well, our first panel discussion. That's going to be led now by Ms. Tishana Mullings. She is the CEO of Next Step Personal Development Services and Inspirational Product. That is a company aimed at maximizing the customer's potential by offering inspirational products and services. Next Step offers the following services: academic coaching, exam preparation, summer programs, and public speaking and critical thinking competition. This is a social enterprise in and of itself. Tishana was nominated for the Prime Minister's Youth Award in 2013 and won the Bud Stewart Community Stalwart Award in 2014. She also won the Governor General's Award for Excellence in 2015, and she is a Chevening Scholar, a freelance motivational speaker, and an author. I now invite her to take her panel through the discussions in this section.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Archibald Gordon. What a wonderful occasion. And when we're at a project closeout ceremony, it would mean that a lot of work would have already gone in. And following this ceremony, there will also be further work. So can we just have a hip, hip hooray in the room for all the persons who have made today possible? Hip, hip. Am I in Jamaica? Maybe. One more time. Hip, hip. All right. That sounds like it. I'm sure we're having a lot of hoorays on social media as well. Now, let me just extend salutations to a number of persons. The Honorable Minister Audley Shaw, Honorable Norman Dunn, who were all here earlier, Her Excellency Ambassador Marianne Van Steel, Head of Delegation, EU in Jamaica, Ms. Marlene Street Forrest, Managing Director, Jamaica Stock Exchange, Ms. Irene Dunquo, Programs Manager, ICR Facility, British Council, Ghana, Mr. Damian Campbell, Program Manager, British Council, Jamaica, distinguished facilitators, panelists, guests, representatives from government, academia, international development partners, social enterprise practitioners, social media landscape, everybody, welcome. All right, so the minister earlier said that social enterprises are the route to social transformation. And I'm sure that all of us in the room who seem to be the choir as it relates to advocates for social enterprise development in Jamaica would also agree. Am I in the right place? Yes, absolutely. And so joining us for this panel is a number of persons who would have been involved in the dialogue, in the workshops that were a part of the ICR facility. So let me just introduce to you the persons joining us for this panel. So joining us online, we have Dr. Kadamwe Knife, Director, Center of Entrepreneurship, Thinking and Practice at the University of the West Indies, who is joining us online. We also have to be joining us Mr. Earl Holmes, General Manager, Business Processing Optimization, National Housing Trust. On stage with me is the very beautiful Miss Nora Blake, Manager of the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange, which was referenced and mentioned so many times throughout this morning's proceedings. And we also have Mr. Blake Whitmore, Executive Director of Defcan Coffee, again, so often referenced throughout today and in the social enterprise landscape. So clearly, we have the right persons with us to express to us what has really been happening in the space and specifically during the dialogue that was a part of the ICR facility. All right, so I'm sure you want to hear another voice. The voice behind that smile, well, a very popular voice in this space. So I'm going to go right to you, Blake, for you to give some reactions and feelings as you were engaged in some of these workshops facilitated by the ICR facility. What's the feeling and the mood about where we're now going, given the discourse you were involved in with? with the ICR facility. Yeah?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Tashana. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody. Not only with the ICR workshops, but also with the groundwork laid for the formulation of the proposed legislation. All of this was integrated. You can't really separate one component from the other because they're all working hand in hand. And the collaboration that we experienced from all different sectors in the input into the development of that legislation, I think, was critical. Because you need to have representative voices, and they did very intentionally seek out those voices and input. And that fed into then the ICR workshops, which brought in a cross-section of public, private practitioners, academia, and started to sensitize us to what's really needed to continue to grow. Because it's been mentioned already this morning that we're just beginning. It's a long journey. We've had great growth and great change and great excitement across Jamaica for the social enterprise sector, but we're just starting. And so those ICR workshops are really, I think, important to establish the long-term vision of what we need. And they were really focused on a global environment. It was not singularly focused on the Jamaican economy only, but thinking big picture, what is really needed in the global landscape and how can we continue to adapt to changing market conditions as well.
Fabulous, and I like what you're saying about the work that has been going on in the sector, what is happening through the ICR facility, and what will now happen. I remember a couple of years ago when President Obama came to Jamaica, and he announced a program where young people could now go to the States to explore issues like social enterprise and how they can come back to their countries and advance. And I remember a woman at the embassy asking me, how many times did you start your business before you really started your business? You know, and we have heard many historical references to social entrepreneurship in Jamaica. What started with that is now Victoria Mutual, and you know, we've heard the history. We're here with this facility, and there's lots more work to be done. So I want to now hear from your perspective, from the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange, just your general reactions to what is happening with this facility. I also attended some workshops where you are doing some capacity building from that angle. So can you just tell us what that has been like for you?
Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, our parent company. The Jamaica Social Stock Exchange has been very participative in the whole process of the work that is being done through the Planning Institute of Jamaica and MIIC, because we consider ourselves chief cook and bottle washer, main stakeholder in terms of the vision that we have to see a sustainable social sector established on par to what we have now through the regular stock exchange in the private sector. So we have had our own workshop, capacity building workshops for social sector organizations. But what is particularly exciting and engaging for us is the work that has been done through this facility, because the vision has with it a mission. Our mission is to provide that platform where the social enterprises can actually be in a space that is fair and equitable, a medium that will give them a chance to be able to access the financing that they need to expand their businesses. So for us, it is absolutely vital and critical to our vision and mission that the legislative framework be established. All that was said by the consultant this morning, we are in prayer that in fact the policy, or if it will be called an act, will be accepted, all the recommendations, because unless the legislation is there, then it's going to be a problem defining who the players are, and of course all the enabling suggestions and recommendations that we think are needed. And what is particularly I would say optimal interest to us is that us at the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange, we too would want to see ourselves being captured through the legislation by being able to register as a social enterprise to ensure our own sustainability, to be able to do what we want to do for the social sector. So it's very, for us, captivating, and we're involved.
Fabulous. Dr. Knife should be joining us online. So I wanted to ease into that conversation regarding the legal status. Now, we know that there are two key deliverables that came out of this work, and these are the Draft Legal Status Act and the Marketing Resource Mobilization Plan. So I want to ask Dr. Knife, who has been a real champion as it relates to social enterprise research in Jamaica and the region at large, you know, what changes do you foresee in the sector now that we are having the ears of some of the key people and the greater understanding as well of the sector through this facility? Where do you see us going now?
Well, start by saying the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And this journey has been for a while, from 2009, the first UNDP research, which was supposed to help in building public sector security. And the first entity to adopt the social enterprise was the JSDF, Jamaica Constabulary Force, which people do not mention. You know, the challenge has always been how do you transform from an informal space to a formal space, because that is where the real challenge tends to be. And so organizations were adopting a social enterprise business model to carry out their functions, but they were not legally recognized as such. So when you establish a framework that they can become regularized under legislation, and also know to promote further marketing of the sector, it is something which is really important. Remember, you know, when we are thinking about, and Dr. Henry mentioned, when we are thinking about Jamaica Vision 2030, if you look at those four goals also mirrors the goals under the SDGs, the 17 goals under the SDGs. And while traditional businesses will not be able to allow you to attain those 17 goals, the social enterprise model actually reflects those 17 goals. So it's like a microcosm of the macrocosm. So the legislation is crucial because it means that through the legislation now, we're going to support entities that endogenizes growth, which means that the benefits from the growth and development impacts directly the persons who we are targeting. It's not a trickle-down model. And without this kind of framework, it would have handicapped that process. It would have handicapped that process. You know, so the framework itself is extremely crucial, and you can only see positive things coming from this. But you know, sometimes they argue that an ounce of practice is worth a ton of theory. So when we do implement these things, there are other associated elements that should come in play through the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture, and Fisheries, as was outlined in the revised MSME policy. But this legislation is a very important piece of that puzzle to get this in here to where it should be.
Thank you there, Dr. Knife. And we've been hearing a lot about SDGs, and I believe that we're extending our vocabulary as it relates to what is happening in the social enterprise sector. There's also what we call ESGs in this sector, which refers to environmental, social, and governance criteria, which really speaks to a set of standards of operations for socially conscious companies and investors. And I'm sure Ms. Blake can tell us some more about that and plans within the JSSC in this regard.
Sure. What I can speak to is, okay, so on this social stock exchange platform, we have two markets intended. We're currently operating in market one, which is strictly for not-for-profits with a project. Now, on this market in particular, the sustainable goals are very important because the projects all speak to some area under the 17 SDGs, well, 15, because number 16 and number 17, the goals are peace and partnership, I believe. But the others all speak to specific areas, whether it is the environment, whether it is economic, job creation, whatever. Now, when you come to the establishment of the legislation, which will facilitate our second market, which is the equities market, I believe now that is where the ESGs are going to be very important. So we are in the process now of developing the framework for how that market will operate. So those will be some important procedural considerations for us, which, for example, we don't have on the junior market or the main market. but it will certainly be a part of the guiding principles and policies of how that market will operate, because that is what will be interesting or interest the investor in the social sector.
Fabulous. And I heard the legal consultant referring to ease of business in the legal space, in the social entrepreneurship space. So I'm wondering now, as a practitioner, Mr. Blake, representing other social enterprise practitioners in the space, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to in terms of doing business with this new legal framework to be?
Yeah, it's critical. The clarity of process, I think, will be important. For our own experience, I think we were an anomaly and not the regular experience where we had an established registered NGO organization under which Def Can Coffee was able to be registered and thrive with an already existing governance framework with existing access to funding. But not every social enterprise is going to have that. And so you need to have a clarity of registration that is low cost, that has low barriers to entry, and that allows people in a community that have a vision, that have a passion, that have an idea, to be able to formalize that and give themselves a foundation on which they can grow. I think we're working towards that. I think there are many different perspectives that have gone into the creation of the draft legislation, and so it's our hope that that will continue to give the opportunities and the open doorway that people can freely go through without constraints.
All right.
If I may
Sure.
make a contribution at this point, specifically to Blake's social sector organization, Def Can. As he said just now, they're sort of an anomaly. They've been a registered NGO. What is very interesting about Def Can is that they have been operating as a not-for-profit entity successfully. And here we are with a legislation that we think could interest and entice them to convert officially to be a social business, where if they're interested, they could offer equity to the public. So, you know, it's really an interesting time in terms of what we see happening through the social stock exchange and the possibility for the trajectory, for the growth trajectory for the social sector.
Thank you very much. And in honoring the integrity of the sector and persons wanting to align, and Anatobi cautioned us earlier, where there are persons who fit quite nicely, whether into the traditional sector or into the charity space, who want to just name as social enterprise, sometimes because of lack of knowledge, but this is something that we are transforming through this programming. All right, so that causes me to want to ease nicely into the marketing and resource mobilization plan, which was the second main deliverable that is coming out of this work. What are some of the things that we must consider as we're now looking forward to giving legs to that plan? Anna walked us through years 1, 2, and 3, and I'm sure there's going to be a beyond. What are some of the things that we must be considering? Thinking in a multi-stakeholder kind of way, from the grassroots right up to persons who are influencing policy in this space. What must we be considering? I'm going to throw that one first to Dr. Knife.
All right. Let me just say again at this point that there are two persons who need to acknowledge in this whole thing of the social enterprise. One would have been Doug McAfee, who was the head of Commit 1 and Commit 2 to USA, and then Anna Bernard was the person USA was actually financing these programs. And through those programs, they actually supported SEBI 1 and then SEBI 2, where SEBI 2 had a similar function to this in terms of how do we promote and market the social enterprise space, and some work was done. But of course, know that more work is actually needed. What I tend to argue is that when we're looking at a sector, you must look at it in terms of the entire business life cycle of the sector. Because there are different marketing needs for persons at different levels of your organization. Some of them startup phase, some of them development phase, some of them high growth phase, and some might actually be in a place where they're mature because they have some established NGOs who are modeling a social enterprise business model that are in a mature phase and they need to innovate. And so the marketing approach must be customized to each level of those organizations. So for example, when we develop what is called a governance index tool, one of the components of a governance index tool has to do with your external relationship. Do you have simple things in place like a website? You know, are you online? So are you getting your information out? Just to build awareness of who you are. But as you move from startup into other phases, you might actually want to get into the broader market space, the local market space, or can you become an export-oriented organization? So you must be guided by the position you're in your business cycle. And so you can't have one thing for every organization. So it will take a lot of work. It will also take a lot of understanding of the landscape itself. You have organizations, for example, like those who are supported by NHT under their social venture program, which might require a different kind of marketing because their target audience might be different. But again, we have an entity like a DEFCAN, and we use DEFCAN now, who's not only in the production of coffee, I'm going to speak some more about that. But DEFCAN has an own farm as well, and potentially might become an exporter of roasted coffee beans as part of their business model. Who's going to support them? Are they going to be linked now to a Jampro? You know, so you find that different entities require different kind of support because there are different levels in your own development trajectory. And unless we do that, we're going to find that some will succeed, but we're going to have some optimal performance of others, not because of the organization themselves, but because of our lack of understanding of where those organizations are and what they actually need. So it's going to take a lot of work on the ground to really design those things properly.
So we're hearing that there's quite a bit of diversity in the social enterprise sector, therefore there must be diverse marketing approaches. I saw a lot of nodding coming from you, Mrs. Blake, so I want to see what's behind the nods.
Totally in agreement with Dr. Knife with regards to the social sector organizations and the various phases, hence the specific need in the growth cycle of their business. And also, I'd like to say from the stock exchange side, because we are now marketing primarily to those who will be supplying the demand that is being made by the social sector organization. So we too have to be working out a very effective marketing and awareness program for our clientele so that the whole ecosystem works well. I could just probably speak to an initiative that we have now where we're trying to capture the imagination of every Jamaican who earns a monthly salary to support the social sector. We call it the Give a Little initiative, because it's not just about corporate entities supporting the social sector and their foundations or big philanthropists, but every Jamaican can actually buy into the vision by way of donation. I think the marketing plan spoke to support through even how you spend your money, yeah, the buy social campaign, stuff like that. But on our side too, there's also a need for some serious marketing, because remember, you know, the social stock exchange is a marketplace. It's about demand and supply. So we have to market and capture the awareness of the public on both sides.
So we all have a role, and no doubt social enterprise practitioners have a role in this process. So as it relates to the marketing and resource mobilization plan, Blake, what would you say is the role of social enterprise practitioners?
Yeah, I think our role is primarily in communicating well our stories, because no matter which type of social enterprise we're talking about, there is always going to be a story behind that social enterprise. For us, our story goes back to rural St. Elizabeth. There was a deaf man named Everlyn Clark who was a passionate coffee farmer. We took a group of students in 2015 on a field trip to meet Clark, just to give them a role model of somebody in the deaf community who is not taking no for an answer. He is not defining himself by what he can't do. He's defining himself as a whole person that can be a key contributor back to his community. And it was that simple field trip which planted the seed which has grown and become DeafCan today. It was never a plan to have a business. It was a plan to inspire deaf young people to believe in their abilities, that they're made in the image of God and he's given them gifts and talents. They need to use them. Clark was that inspiration. So we have a story, and it goes back to the heartbeat of Clark, who's now passed away. But that legacy and his passion for his community to grow and develop is what passed on. So we as social enterprises, our key role is communicating that story well, because nothing happens in a vacuum. There are always going to be surrounding contexts and factors that lead to the creation of any type of social enterprise or community-based organization. So we have to tell those stories well, over and over again, so other people can understand them. Once other people understand the story, they'll realize, well, I could actually be part of a story too. I don't have to just be on the sidelines observing. I could actually be part of this, and when I'm a part of it, I'm actually finding there's a lot of joy and hope and excitement in this. So we have to do that well, and I think that's what my colleagues that are in social enterprise, that's what Lanicia's done, that's what you have done through Next Steps, it's what the guys at Educators have done. We're telling stories, and the more we tell those stories, the more the broader society and community realizes they too can be a part of that story.
Fabulous. And as we seek to bring this discussion to a close, I'm going to charge each of you to think about what's your 30-second message to persons in the private sector for you, Ms. Blake. What's your message to persons who are social enterprise practitioners? And also, Dr. Knife, what's your message to researchers in the field who can influence this space? And let me use my 30 seconds here to just tell a quick story. So in 2012, at Northern Caribbean University, they had a competition, an entrepreneurship competition. Entered that competition saying, look, I want to find who I am, didn't have any kind of self-concept, didn't understand who I was, and did some life coaching training. Long and short, found who I was. It was so amazing, so transformational. I decided that, look, I want to help Jamaican youth, to begin with Jamaican youth, to find themselves, to figure out what their destinies would look like. And from doing that, I started Next Step Lifelong Educational Services without certainty as to where we were going. Now, we started doing business in the parish of St. Thomas, who, by the way, this parish was flagged as the poorest. And I was looking at a PIOJ report and underdeveloped when I noted that, and I started reading and following those reports, and then started slowly but surely doing all kinds of initiatives, starting with GSAT students, then eventually we got into corporate, still doing that work. Now in 2016, I believe it was, when we met Sebi, and this is a vulnerable moment here, we got an award from the USAID for rural regeneration, and I looked around at my team and I'm like, what is that? And this is exactly what we were doing. The first and only social enterprise in the parish, taking with us apprentices all over Jamaica, giving them the experience to stand in a corporate room, training corporate executives as a part of our team. And today we also have with us a very talented creative, Mr. Darren Douglas, who again is a part of that process. We never go out without including people as a part of that process. So here again, we want to thank Sebi and all the persons in the room who were a part of that journey. So that's just one example, one story. We have engaged over 540 interns since we began in 2012, and the work continues, right? So my charge is, doing good and doing good business is not mutually exclusive. So if you start thinking about business, think about doing good and doing good business as one piece, all right? So I'm going to go to Nora first.
If I may just pull your two stories together, what excites me about being a social entrepreneur is that it's not just about one bottom line, the profit bottom line, that people bottom line, that environment, planet bottom line, the triple bottom line. It's so much more profitable, So I am personally very proud to be a social entrepreneur, as I think we all are. Now, in terms of what I'd like to leave with our viewers and participants with regard to the work we're doing at the Social Stock Exchange, I would just like people to imagine with us Jamaica becoming the best in class for the right balance between social and economic development. That's our primary value proposition. We believe the stock exchange, having had that privilege through hard work and now having the experience of what it is to be number one on the world stage, by modeling and emulating our parent company in terms of governance and proper business practices and so on, we believe that this endeavor, which is a national endeavor, can be attained in the social sector. But it needs all of us to work this through. So I would just ask that everybody consider, what can I do? What role can I play? So it is for the person who earns a salary monthly, it is for the corporates, it's for the listed companies, it's for the non-listed companies, it's for our international development partners to come along with us in this national endeavor for us to get Jamaica to that place where we could be the #1 country that balances its people's development along with its economic development.
Fabulous. And we're going to Dr. Knife.
All right, let me just say that brain without heart can lead to growth, but not sustainable development. And traditional businesses use a lot of brain and can generate growth. But social enterprises, because its mission driven, is really driven by the heart and the brain. So if we really want to put ourselves on a platform to create systemic changes, structural changes that really impact and improve the quality of lives of people, we have to start focusing on building out these social sector organizations. Because in truth and in fact, SDs are the organizations that best mirrors the whole culture of the Jamaican landscape. Where we say one hand can't clap and men make the work light. You know? And so that is what we need to focus on. How do we truly support to establish a robust social sector in Jamaica while still giving support to traditional sectors as well.
Fabulous. And going to you, Blake, for your charge to the social enterprise practitioners.
My charge to the social enterprise practitioners includes other various stakeholders. Similar to what I shared earlier about our role as social entrepreneurs is to share our stories, we need other people to share those stories as well. We need other people to work with us to help spread the word. It can't be us alone in the social enterprise sector that are telling people about what a social enterprise is all about. But specifically to other practitioners is we have to make sure that in our desire to see social change and to work with our communities that we are engaging in wise and solid business practices. And so my challenge to those that work in the sector with me is to not sell yourself short. It's to realize the value that you provide, to communicate that value clearly, and then hold people accountable to giving you the value that you deserve. Not to be giving away services, not to be giving away products, but to make sure that you are standing firm in the value that you're providing, not only to your community, but to the country as a whole.
Social value creation.
Wow, what a wealth of knowledge from our panelists here. So I hear, imagine Jamaica best in class for social and economic development. I'm hearing creation of systemic and structural changes that will improve quality of life in Jamaica. I'm hearing a multi-stakeholder approach where our social businesses are operating at best practice level and they're not selling themselves short. And I believe with that, we are well positioned for a thriving ecosystem in our social enterprise sector in Jamaica. I believe this is the choir, again, in the room that's singing the tunes for social enterprise development. And I'm asking us, charging us to continue singing those tunes. Want to sound good? And I believe that we're on to something great. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Tishana. We heard some wonderful stories there, not just from Tishana Mullings, our moderator for that panel discussion, but also from Blake Widmer as well as the other panelists. And I just want to point out that, very often we think nothing is happening, but it's clear that these stories have been making an impact. It's part of the reason that we're here today, and we have seen some of the fruits of the work. We have seen, for instance, the draft legal act already done and the marketing plan. But you know what they say the reward for work well done is? Yeah, it is more work. So the question now is, what are the next steps? What really is the way forward? especially in terms of government support to the social enterprise ecosystem. So our next presenter is going to tell us, give the answers to that, and he's Mr. Oral Shaw. Mr. Shaw is Principal Director of the SME Unit in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. We're going to be talking about the way forward, government support to the social enterprise ecosystem. So, Mr. Shaw, take it away.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gordon. And I really thank this audience here today, inside the Pegasus and outside, for participating in this very important event. Charmaine, representing the PIOJ and the other partners, we have come a very long way, very long way to where we are today, but there are some very important next steps, which I will share with you very shortly. So first of all, I just really want to thank our partners, the PIOJ, the European Union, the British Council, the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States, the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development for their technical assistance, financial support, administrative oversight for the development of this very key set of proposals for the development of a legislative framework for the growth and development of the social enterprise sector in Jamaica. From the ministry and from a ministry perspective, and Charmaine lay out the foundation very comprehensively in our opening statement in terms of how the social enterprise sector incorporated into the ministry's MSME and entrepreneurship policy. And what I want to reiterate is how important this MSME sector is to government economic development strategy. There are about 425,000 MSMEs in Jamaica. And I always have to say this because I want to highlight the importance of MSMEs and SEs, which are themselves MSMEs, how important they are to the government's economic development strategy and for growing the economy. So there are 425,000 MSMEs in Jamaica. They account for 34% of the employed labor force, 15% of total population. At the end of fiscal year March 2021, total MSMEs contributed $243.1 billion to taxation. They account for 90% of the private sector and contribute 44% to gross domestic product when the informal sector is taken into consideration. So I just really want to highlight the importance of this sector to national development and to government's economic development strategy, and why it is important now to move to the very important next step of getting this legislative framework in place for the social enterprise sector. What I want to say now are the next critical steps to making this a reality. Currently, and it's you know, we have done some advanced work long before Renee had completed her final legislative document. We began to prepare a cabinet submission about 2 months ago in preparation for the receipt of the final report for the social enterprise legislative framework. Currently, that cabinet submission is now being reviewed internally within the ministry in the legal department, and has been going through the various consultative process with a view to drafting a cabinet submission for approval and of course it has to be approved by the permanent secretary, and then it goes to cabinet for approval. The good thing about it, we have a very good minister working with. He was here with you this morning. He is part of the cabinet. He's going to champion this arrangement when it comes to cabinet. And when I presume that we will have a strong approval process with respect to it, but subject to approval, it then goes to the Chief Parliamentary Council with some drafting instructions for the preparation of a draft bill. My understanding is that the most optimistic time for the cabinet submission to get to cabinet is within another 6 to 8 weeks. I was advised by the legal department. Once it gets to cabinet, as I had indicated, they would review the submission, they would deliberate on it, and as I indicated to you, our minister will lead that process. Subject to cabinet approval, will then prepare the drafting instruction to the Chief Parliamentary Council to prepare a draft bill. And when it gets to the bill stage, there are several other processes to follow. So once it gets to the CPC, they will circulate the bill to various organs of government, such as the Attorney General's Department and so on. And then it goes to what is called a legislative committee for consideration. And then it is introduced in Parliament, where we get both houses of Parliament to pass the bill, and then the act becomes operational. Those are the stages. Charmaine, you can rest assured that I will push as much as I can with respect to the process. As I said to you, the good thing about it, I had started preparing the cabinet submission 2 months ago, and as such, it is easy for the legal department to work on the submission now with a view to getting it to cabinet. So I will give you updates as frequently as I get them, and hopefully I can't tell you a timeline as to when all of these processes are going to be completed, and I can't make any prediction or anticipation as to when these will happen. But you know, all of these things are legal parameters, and they will ensure that all the I's and the T's are dotted. And importantly, that section of the bill that speaks to incentives for MSMEs, for the SEs, because that is a joint discussion between our ministry and the Ministry of Finance. And I presume that that process will take a little time, because government would have to look at the implications of giving tax waivers and all of these things. So that process could take some time before it goes to Parliament for approval. So I hope that I've outlined the critical next steps, and regretfully I can't tell you a timeline for all of these things because I have no control over the legal processes, and you know that some of these things can be a protracted arrangement. But the first critical step is the cabinet submission, and I was told just about 30 minutes ago that it will be at cabinet within the next 6 to 8 weeks. Thank you very much, and to get to this stage, and it's a real pleasure working with the partners in this process, and I'm looking for a phase 2, And I tell you that I'm really energized for phase 2. And I don't like when my energy is sapped. So I hope that this thing happens. Thank you very much. And I wish you the best for the rest of the afternoon and for your lunch as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shaw. I want to thank all of you today who joined us today, both here as well as online. Let's keep the discussion going. Now, more than once today, we've heard that this has been the only successful ICR facility in the Caribbean. So I'm going to end by speaking it into being again, that we're expecting that will be a part 2 on the basis of the success of part 1, as we've seen today, and as well that we'll see that the next steps move very quickly. So moving very quickly, not just having the act, but moving quickly from a draft to a bill, then to an act approved by Parliament and signed by the Governor General. So I want to thank all of the partners. I want to thank everyone who worked on the project. I want to thank you at home. I'm Archibald Gordon. Thank you for coming and sharing with us this afternoon, and have a great day.